All right, at this point in time, you should have two playgrounds created. One playground with a simple character controller that is able to just kind of follow behind the player as you move around in a fairly smooth way. The player is always facing forward and you're just kind of turning it as you move around your world. Or an advanced player controller, which uses Cinemachine to create a bit more of an immersive kind of camera that can zoom in and out and kind of orbit around as your player moves in different directions. It's time for you to decide which camera that you'd prefer to work with, and then focus this tutorial inside of that playground, and then work with it from then on. So make the decision, and then let's dive into our next tutorial. For this one, something I've done with the camera is I've removed these extensions. So you might have this collider extension added here. I've right-clicked and removed mine because it makes it behave a little bit better for a couple of the features I'm adding in this tutorial. And we're going to be focusing on a tool that we've installed called ProBuilder. If you don't remember how you got this, or if you haven't got it yet, head to your package manager under the Unity registry and find ProBuilder and make sure it's downloaded and installed. And now let's learn what this is going to do for us. Although before we start, why do we need ProBuilder? It's because we're fairly limited in Unity in terms of the diversity of 3D models that we have to work with. They're kind of the basic shapes: cubes, spheres, capsules for kind of humanoid-like creatures, cylinders and planes, and a few other options that we've worked with in various amounts of detail, but we don't really have an option to create really custom shapes. And this is a tool in Unity that allows us to do so. If you've worked in Blender a lot before, you'll find some of these features quite familiar. That said, you do not have to use ProBuilder in your 3D modeling in this course. I'm just giving you this as an option to help you prototype, as well as one of the tools that you could choose to work with later, particularly if you specialize in this subset. Go to Tools, ProBuilder, and open up the ProBuilder window. And we will see that we have a variety of tools and options. Yours probably looks like this right out of the box. Also notice at the top of the screen there is now these 4 icons. I'll explain them in a moment. Do note that inside ProBuilder, you can right-click and either have icon mode or text mode. I'm going to keep it in text mode for now, just so that you can kind of see some of these options a little bit more clearly on my screen. So let's get going. I'm going to show you just a few basic tools that you can use here, but they'll be pretty powerful. You can create a ton of content just knowing these few things. But what we want to do is click on the plus beside new shape and see what ProBuilder does. And in mine, it kind of dropped it in a weird spot. I'm just going to reset the location of it. But you'll see it drops this cube in, and it's a cube just like one in Unity. And so you might be wondering, if we can already make cubes in Unity, why do we need ProBuilder? Well, a few reasons. First is because we can actually have different shapes than Unity comes built with, like a prism, or most interestingly for now, a staircase that comes kind of built right in the box, out of the box here. So what can we do with these things? Well, technically right now in this screen, this is just kind of a preview mode while I change some settings about things. For example, in the stairs, I can toggle how many steps it has. I can also toggle the width and the height and the depth to kind of spread these stairs out a little bit more until I get to a setting that I like. And then I can press build, although I can actually curve these stairs to make it a cool kind of curvy staircase. Let's do this, that looks nice. Now when I hit build, that object is now in my world. And this shape tool is still in the way, so if I close this down, I can see that object that I've added. The stairs now exist. And if I press run and test this out in my game, I should be able to see that this player is able to walk up these stairs. This is so much faster than manually making these stairs, where you have to create multiple different rectangles and kind of put them together. This curvedness is also kind of difficult to do without some good meshes, so we can make a nice staircase right out of the box and test this out and add some more content into our games really quickly. I'm going to leave these stairs in and then head over here and add another shape. This time I'm going to add a cube to kind of see what all the fuss is about with this cube type object and why it's different than what we can work with in Unity normally. Why would we use this tool? Well, with this cube built and added to my world, I can now choose it and it looks kind of normal. However, one thing I'll point out at first, you'll see that if I kind of transform this size, normally in Unity, when I have a cube and I change the size, it morphs it from the middle. So both edges stretch in the same way. In ProBuilder, only one edge gets stretched, which might make it more under your control. Say you line up this left-hand side and then you stretch it. The right-hand side will stretch out without the left-hand side being moved, which might be a little bit easier in some of the scenarios that you're working with. But the main reason we want to use ProBuilder is because of these settings up here, where we can choose the whole object, individual corners or vertexes, sides or edges, and whole faces. So the vertex selection allows us to kind of click on a single corner and manipulate it. For example, I can pull it up and sideways and out, stretching and warping this shape. Maybe I want to do inwards and pull this in to give this kind of an internal contour. Now I see I have this kind of unique, strange artistic shape here. And I can think about if I was able to manipulate enough of these edges in just the right ways, I could potentially make a pretty cool looking, I don't know, part of a robot or part of decoration for a building, or even morph it into a level itself. Let's see what some of the other options allow us to do. So those are the edges, or the points, sorry. I can also snag, if I head back to my basic cube shape here, one of the edges and do the same type of a thing. Pull it out, lift it up to kind of create this bit of a surface here with the nice triangular underside. I can also, well, I could have done this with the other tool, but I can also kind of twist and torque, rotate this. Get some weird results sometimes, but if I do it just a little bit, I can have kind of a cool kind of sloping in effect. Could be really useful for some levels. And I can even resize just that edge, and everything else is going to adapt to the change of that geometry. Pretty cool. I can also grab faces and just move those individually. So I'm kind of lifting up this platform at the top without changing any of the other relative proportions of the geometry down below. Move just that top part to the side, so everything else does follow along with it, but that bottom part, you'll see, stays secured there. So now I suddenly have this like leaning tower kind of effect, and I can even almost think about this kind of becomes almost a bit of a platform. So I have tons of ability to move and change shapes, and I'm gonna go back to my main object here, so now I can just move this main thing down to ground level, and let's just see what happens when I try to interact with this. Now it's near the floor. So I head over to this, see kind of my cool thing, and I have this kind of custom little platform to walk in now that has a unique shape to it. Not particularly practical, but maybe I have a cool stylistic aspect to my level where I have some kind of atypical geometries going on that I want to try to implement. Or maybe I want to warp things into more complete, interesting layered objects. I'm not going to spend much time doing that in this video. I just want to give you the tools to play around with things yourself. All right, let's add one more cube into our program here. It keeps on adding it up top, so I'm just going to drop it in front of us here, build this in place, and take a look at a few more tools that we have. I have one floating in the sky still. At a disposal to kind of get a few more things up and running in here. When I have these different types of pieces of content selected, you'll see that the submenus in ProBuilder change. There's lots of little things we can do to kind of work with different types of 3D object content. One of them being this extrude option. Now, if I just pull on this for now, a face, you'll see that I am pulling this out and extracting it and extruding it. The extrude tool does something very similar, where I'm just kind of expanding that section and pulling it out further. But I'm creating a new face with the extrude tool. So I'll show you one more time here. If I just pull this out and click on this, this object is still a single face, but the extrude tool creates a new face that's now extending outwards. And I could, well, grab the whole object and move it all together as a whole, or I could grab each of these different faces and move them individually. And so I'm kind of pulling that whole face a little bit more forward, but I've kind of added a new section to this by extruding it. And I can choose any face I want and extrude it and continue to chip away at building. Oops, I clicked on that. I keep on clicking on the plus. I don't want to do custom options right now. I just want to extrude it. Cool. And from here, I just want to extrude this face, and then I just want to extrude this face. So now I'm kind of building a little bit more of what could be a bit of a layout for a level here, just with this basic idea of extruding things and moving them around. But what if I wanted to only have this extruded section, I wanted it to only have the kind of the second half of this extruding outwards, or maybe just part of the top. What could I do to kind of chop things into smaller portions? Well, one thing that I could do is click on this subdivide object, which is going to make it split up into lots of smaller pieces that then I can extrude individually. And, well, not just pulling it, I could extrude it here. Or something I can do is make there be a bit more of a customized cut. So let's go back and undo that chop. And instead, I'm going to choose to click on one of the edges. And with this edge tool now selected, I can choose Insert Edge Loop, which is going to make a perpendicular cut that I can move around to decide where I want that custom section to be. So by moving it a bit to the right, maybe close to the edge here, I've now chopped this piece into, if I click on the face, a slice that has its own new sections that I can manipulate. And now I can think about lifting that section up so that it has a bit of a slope to it, or I could extrude this face and create a bit of a wall and then extrude out from this and then have kind of the look that I was kind of aiming for in this and extend this out. And suddenly I'm able to start to put together a little bit of a map. Now you might think, how is this a map? Because it's so small. Well, of course, I can always just scale this up if I wanted to. And if I need to kind of shrink it down because it's a bit too high for my player, and then pull it over here, jot it down. I think it's still a little bit high, so let's shrink this down a little bit more. And like that, just by expanding the size of it, I have this custom platform idea that my player should be able to jump onto that has all the colliders it needs in place and has been built to have this custom experience for my player with the extruding. And I could have warped things, I could play with all the different settings, but now I have the ability to create a lot more interest into the 3D objects for both my level design and maybe later on character design. Although for now, I want you to focus mainly on the levels. So I could consider just throwing together a really simple prototype of something here where I have this winding staircase that leads to this slightly more interesting, why don't I rotate this around a little bit here just to kind of line up with this a little bit more. Slightly more interesting kind of set of platforms that kind of head off out into over the void and expand this level out into something more interesting as kind of a bit more of a platformer. And there's a whole ton of content we can develop. I could think about filling a huge amount of space with custom content now using this tool that you're going to be challenged with doing in your own work. For now, spend some time playing around with this tool. I would recommend even just trying to click on some of these other options while you have a special shape selected, choose a corner point, and try to choose a few of these options and just see what it does and develop a bit of an intuition for how you can use this to create some basic level layouts. In your current prototypes, it doesn't have to be anything too detailed or refined. We're just going to make quick conceptual prototypes here. But do get an intuition built for this and then continue to the next video.